Hey, what's up? This your boy Elijah. Welcome back to another edition of Glenn's is How I See It. It's your boy once again doing what he does, talking to dads about what it is to be a dad and what it looks like. Another edition of Humble Dad. We've been in here for, I think this is episode number 42. And I reached out to a gentleman by way of another guy that I've interviewed, Antoine, and talked to this young man. And he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm cool with that. Let's talk about whatever it is we need to talk about." Matter of fact, we talked so long that we could have had an interview the first time that we had a conversation. And so I know that this is going to be a good one just because of the connection we've already made. And I want to welcome none other than Mr. Jerome Quarles. What it is, sir?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. On vacation, so I'm doing great.
Listen, for you to take time out to, what I'm saying, to holler at me on vacation, I really appreciate it. Where
No
you at?
problem. Right
You
now,
don't have to
I'm
disclose
at home.
everything, but you know what I'm saying? Oh, you at home vacation.
I'm at home. I'm okay. I'm on a staycation.
Okay, that's what's up. So you're not
Yeah.
doing no work.
No, only thing I'm trying to do right now is just some stuff around the house and get in the gym as much as I can while I'm off, and pretty much it. We thought about traveling somewhere, but we went and spend some money, so I don't want to spend no more money. So we can
That's
go do a
dope.
staycation.
Hey, yeah. The vacations are not that bad though. If
Yeah.
you plan it right, that's what's up.
Absolutely.
So let's get into it, man. I want to ask the question I always ask. What do you feel like the difference between a dad and a father is, or do you feel like there isn't one?
Initially when I first heard that question, I thought there's really no difference. But when you hear father, you kind of think like an office, and daddy's like the function.
Mm,
Even though they're the same, but the father is like the office to me, and daddy is like the person that he's intimate. Uh, he's a teacher.
mm,
Um, he's stern but fair. Um, he gives the validation, all those kind of things. But I don't know. They're the same to me, but it just when you say father versus daddy, it does seem like there's a little bit of a difference. Like daddy seems to be a little bit more gentler. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
for
so
sure, for sure. I had one. My first interview was my uncle, and he told me that he didn't see the difference other than,
mm.
well, he would say that the father was like the sperm donor is what he said. And then he said, well, and then the dad is the one that has the intimacy depiction of with their kids,
Mhm.
and so he considered himself both because he did supply,
Right, right,
his DNA,
right.
but also he was the individual that also nurtured
Uh,
his kids, and so I understand what you're saying. And there was this other guy that I recently interviewed. I can't believe I don't remember his name right now, but he added on to it. He said it's a daddy. He said there's a father, that's dad, and then there's daddy.
mm,
Why do you think he said daddy?
I could not tell you.
He said because like it, and I thought about it when I talk because my dad went in my life, so I would say my
Uh-huh.
dad, right? But
Mm,
if you have that intimate conversation, when they can call up on you and they know that you're there for them, they typically call you daddy.
mm,
Like your kids, I don't know if they say, "Dad, can I do this?" or do they say, "Daddy, can I do this?" or "Daddy, can we do this?" So
mhm.
that's what he did. He kind of did that. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So as we talk about dads and fathers, I want to go back into the time, kind of talk to us about like when you was a youngster. We'll talk about elementary, then middle school, high school, and
Mm.
thereafter. However you want to, position it. I just try to keep it chronological because I'm a math guy. But you can do however you want to. All right.
Yeah.
So like, kind of talk to us about like, the father figure in your life, or if you even had one.
Oh man. Wow, I didn't know I was gonna go here. This is great though. I love this stuff. I
Yeah.
just had a conversation actually Sunday with somebody up in Salina. We talked about fathers, and my mother and my father were married when I was very young, but they got divorced. Um, my dad was a heroin addict, And so,
Mm.
he would break in the house. He was very abusive. I actually watched my father rape my mother.
Dang.
And yeah, and I remember it like it's crazy because I was telling my auntie about it one time, how I remembered that, and she looked at me with shock, and she was like, "That's
Wow.
crazy. What kind of memory you had?" She said, "Because you were only like 3 years old," but I remember it like it was yesterday. And I figured later on that's how trauma works. So I remember
Yeah.
seeing him. He had my mother tied up, was raping her, and he yelled at me because I was standing there, and he yelled at
Mm.
me to go back to bed, and then he kidnapped my mother that night and drove her like 7 or 8 hours to Las Vegas and was going to kill her.
Oh
And
my
so,
God.
so knowing all that, and then on top of that, they divorced, and then he was kind of in and out of my life. So you kind of, develop some resentment. And so I
Mm.
grew up at one point, kind of, well, I wouldn't say I grew up hating my father. I did hate him at a certain point.
Yeah.
Um, part of it
Understand.
was because he he kind of caused me to deal with rejection to a degree because I could never depend on him. And I know even when I came to the faith, that was one of the things I struggled with early in my walk, was because I would connect my father to my heavenly father. So
Yes.
if I could never depend on my natural father, it was hard to depend on my spiritual father. You know what I mean?
I remember
And I
that.
even remember as a kid, it was even hard for me to say daddy or father. I could never call my dad or father. I had a weird feeling about it. I can't even
Yes.
explain it. It felt weird
I'm
just to
with
call
you.
him dad or pops or whatever. I think I started calling him pops, but you know, but
Yes.
um, but I remember, one time he on my birthday, I wanted a hamster or something, and they made you had to buy the kit. You couldn't just buy the hamster. And my and my mom was like, I'll buy the hamsters, but your dad has to buy the kit. And of course, I'm like, he ain't gonna buy the kit or whatever. So she was like, well, you never know. Give it, just call him up. And back then, we're in the mall, so there was no cell phone. So you had to go to pay phone, put your little
Yes.
dime and dial it
Take
and do
it
all that
back.
stuff.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
And so, when we used to dial popcorn and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I still remember
Countdown.
that 767 and whatever the number was, right?
That's
And
what's
then,
up.
and so anyway, I called him up, asked him about the money. Um, he hesitated. He was like, "Yeah, I got it. I know I don't. I'm not sure." And so I'm already kind of like, "Here we go." And so he told me to come to the house and that he would have it for me. So get to my grandparents' house, and all my cousins, all my uncles, aunts, they're all there, and they were hanging outside on the front porch. And
What age is this again?
I want to say this was it's got to be around the fifth or sixth grade.
Okay. Okay.
I'm almost certain it's either the fifth or sixth grade, and it was summer. I do remember it was summertime though. I think it was fifth grade.
Okay.
And so I come to him, and he comes meets me at the front line. He didn't even let me get to the house, so I already knew
Mhm.
like something's up, because he ain't even let me get to the house. So me and my mom got out the car, and um, he comes to me. He's like, "Hey, I know I told you I could have the money, but I don't have it." He said, "But I do have this," and he opened my hand up, and he poured in my hand $3 in quarters, nickels, and dimes. And so, as a 10-year-old kid, I looked at the money, and I threw it at him. And so
What?
then yeah, I threw it at him. And so because at that age, you're still processing from a child's mindset.
Absolutely.
You're starting to deal with the rejection of your father. Um, every time you call him, he's not there. You're looking for his phone call on your birthday, he's not there. Christmas comes around, he's not there. And I remember I didn't even like celebrating my birthdays. My mom was a very energetic. She's a cheerleader, so my mom was
Okay.
a very outgoing person. I mean, she skis, and my mom's in her 60s.
Let's go.
And so my experience growing up was I swam, I skied, I did a whole lot of stuff.
What? Okay.
Yeah. And so my mom, she oh man, I forgot what I was gonna say right there.
You was talking about your dad. You threw the money,
I threw the
and
money. Yeah,
then
I threw the money. So my mom, she came, got out the car, and then my aunts were yelling at her basically, and they were telling her like,
these aren't on your dad's side.
on my dad's side, his
Okay.
sisters. And so
Okay.
they're, telling her like, you shouldn't teach him to hate his father and this and that. They're getting on my mom, and
Mm.
so my mom's like, first of all, I don't speak. down about his father to him. I'm the one that told him to call his father. And, she's like, the bottom line is, Jerome is old enough to know what's going on. And I didn't create this. His father created this. I don't tell him to yada. And she's right. My mom didn't speak down on my father. Although at times I felt like she treated me a certain way because I look just like him. I'm a spitting image of him. So, I know she treated me a certain way because I probably reminded her of him. And so that kind of began a journey of like where I really began to like hate him. I hated everything about my name. I wanted to change my name. I hated my first name. I questioned why he didn't make me the junior, why he made my brother the junior, and all that kind of stuff. And
okay, wait, let me pause right there. So you're old. So I'm assuming you're older than the brother that you're talking about.
I'm the oldest of 5. My dad had 5 children. He had 2 by my mother.
Oh, okay.
And so, but out of all his kids, I'm the oldest. And so,
okay, so, I see. I was just trying to catch up.
Yeah, and at the time, I think he had a daughter. Her name is Shamika. At that time, I think he had her. She's probably like 2,
Okay.
And so I'm still thinking of us as a family, like my mom, my brother, and my father. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, that began a journey of resenting him. And then the next summer, I mean, he was in jail. He went to prison because, again, he was a heroin addict. So he was in and out of prison. And so I just stopped looking for his phone calls. And so the following summer, my mom went through some hard times, and it was a time where we were homeless. And so we had to stay, she wanted to stay with one of her friends, but, my mom, I guess, was too ashamed to ask her. And her friend was like, you could stay with us. But she's like, if you just let my boy stay there, I'll be fine. And my mom used to sleep in a van. And so, so then what happened was, so finally my dad had got out. He was doing good for himself, cleaned himself up, and his girlfriend, they were living together. So my mom asked him if we could come stay for a summer. And when I tell you I cried the whole way going over there, I mean, I did not want to go over there because I still had so much anger and animosity towards him. Wow. But once I got over there, it was like, this is how it's supposed to be, except where's my mother? You know what I'm saying? Because, he's with his girlfriend. And so I remember one time, man, I got to tell this. I remember one time I said something, I was a smart aleck as a kid. And so I said something very smart to, his girlfriend. And this is the sweetest, outside of my wife, this is probably the sweetest woman I've ever met in my life. I mean, she didn't give me any reason to say anything bad. I was just being a butt,
Yeah.
But her name was Nina. I'll never forget her. She was the sweetest. I mean, if she ever got mad, I would be shocked. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And so I remember when I disrespected her, she was like, Jerome, I've been knowing you since you was a baby, and I've never disrespected you. I've always taken care of you and tried to help you, helped your mother, yada, yada, yada. And she was like, and I don't appreciate you talking to me like this, and I'm going to let your father know when he gets here. I'm like, I don't care. Forget him. I'm just, because I'm angry at him anyway.
Yeah.
And so I remember when he got home, I was outside playing with this dude named Billy. And
wow, this is a vivid description. Like, I'm walking with you, bro. Like, I see you. Go ahead, I'm there.
I'm playing with this dude named Billy. We down the street playing, and I hear my dad about a half a block away, calling for me. And so everybody like, ooh, you about to get a whooping, I'm like, he ain't doing nothing. And so, I'm just arrogant, mad, angry, don't care. And so I get in the house and he talks to me about what happened. And man, when I tell you he kicked my butt, I mean, he beat me like a slave. He kicked my tail. I mean, and it was funny because up until that point, it's funny now when I look back now. I mean, it wasn't funny then, of course. Okay. Chastisement is joyous to no man, but grievous, right?
Yeah.
So. But I remember because before that, he had gave me a whooping. Me and my cousins, we was jumping in and out of a pool in that same apartment where he, raped my mother. And my mom told him he had to whoop me, and he didn't want to do it. I remember we're in the bathroom. And he was like, I don't want to whoop you, but you can't be jumping in and out the pool, because I learned how to swim since I was like 2.
Okay.
And so when he whooped me, it was like, it wasn't really a whooping, you know. So I thought he didn't know how to whoop. I thought my mom was the chief whooping person in the house, you know. So I thought my dad was kind of weak. And so when he called me to the house, man, and he took me in that room and he just wore me out. And then after that, it wasn't just a whooping, but it was after that. Then I had to go clean the kitchen. I had to go outside and cut the grass. And then I had to rake the leaves. And it was like 10 o'clock at night and I'm still outside. And he's like, you ain't coming back in here until you done.
Man.
So that's how he did me, you know, and I needed that. I really did. It really taught me a lot, you know, about authority and stuff. And so once that summer ended, my mom, you know, got herself together and she came to get us. Now, instead of me like crying, you know, going there, I didn't want to go there. I was crying. Now I don't want to leave. Now I'm crying because I don't want to leave because I finally got some type of relationship with my dad that I always wanted. And so
even with the
discipline, because he, you know, even when I was around him at times, he was never like that with me. He only whooped me twice that I can remember. And I can't remember how long they were married.
And so that one was, and you can see that one was deserved.
It was deserved. Yeah. Because I mean, I was being disrespectful, but when I say he beat me, I'm just saying in terms of like it hurt. You know what I mean? It wasn't like he, you know, made me strip and you know did some crazy stuff or nothing. But you know, it's a difference between when a man whoop you and when a woman whoop you, and I felt the difference. Right. That's what I meant by like he beat my tail because I felt the difference, and I thought there wasn't going to be no difference.
Yeah.
And so
hey, take note of that.
Yeah.
I remember my uncle with me. And I remember my mom with me. It wasn't the same. And then my dad, it was I think it was like around the ages you're talking about, because my dad went in my life. He was remarried or whatever. And we got in trouble. I had my stepbrother. We got in trouble because we was throwing rocks in the apartments. We had told us to stop
same thing
before we break something. And we kept throwing rocks. So like, man, I don't like this dude. You know what I'm saying? That's like, I didn't respect my dad like that at all. It just, you know, and hey, he told us, hey, take them off. And then he just started whooping us, bro. That's the only whooping that I ever got from him. And I still remember it, Doc. Like that feeling right there was not what that was, man. So I wish.
But you know what is weird is, you know, my wife always says this to me. She's like, babe, when you put your foot down, she said, I don't have no problems with the kids. She said, it takes me, I got to do it 20 times to your once or whatever.
Yes, again.
And I can even attest, because in my family, I'm known to be the talker. You know, I'll talk you so much you'll want to whoop it, you know, because the way I grew up was my mom yelled a lot. And so instead of expressing herself and getting a point across, I'm like, okay, what did I do now? All I hear is yelling and fussing. Yeah. And so she didn't know how to communicate to me. And so I always wanted to make sure that when I'm talking and I'm chastising or whatever my kids, that they understand what I'm trying to convey to them.
We the same vein, bro.
Because I hated all that yelling and screaming. It's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. Just tell me what it is I'm doing wrong so I can fix it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. And so that's the difference between, you know, the emotion of a woman and the sternness of a man. That's why we're both so necessary in a marriage for you know, rearing children. You got to have both. You balance each other out. Exactly. And so so my mom was all over the place. So that's why I talk a lot. So, but with my kids, I can only recall whooping each and every one of them one time, except one of my daughters. I don't think I've ever had to whoop her. Wow. But all of them only whooped maybe once. Now my wife, that's a different story. Wow. She at home with them all day, you know. But for me, I've only had to deal with them like that once. You know what I mean? So I just think as husbands and fathers, I think we're a little slower to take that approach, unless you got some serious, you know, anger issues or something. Yeah. But
you have to be right. Like a man has to be slow. I mean, the Bible tells us to be slow to anger anyway, right?
Right.
And then the aggression of a man, me and my wife talk about this regularly. Like a man has to be slow in how he processes anger, because if we get angry too fast or we just explode in how we want to, you know, then it's not gonna be good.
It's a wrap.
Yeah. So and I was funny to my kids. Yeah. No, you're fine. You're fine. It's you need to be talking. I was just explaining the part that you were saying. Go ahead.
No, that's a good point because my wife used to get on me sometimes, like you don't whoop them enough, or you don't. And I'm like, I understand it now because God, I see how God deals with me. He is slow to anger, slow to wrath on me when I screw up. And so it teaches you how to be patient with your kids. Plus, there's certain things I don't want to say or do because I don't want to give them the same complexes I had growing up because I was processing what my mom told me the wrong way. You know what I mean? And so that's why I'm more of a talker than I am quick to corporal punishment. But when it's necessary, I'll do what I got to do. Now, we did a lot of that early though with our kids. We did a lot of the tapping on the hands and the tapping on the legs, not beating, but tapping where they felt it just enough to know, hey, that's a no-no. We did that early, and we felt like that paid off for us, like to get that discipline early. So as they got older, I mean, everywhere we went in public, and I'm not boasting, I give all glory to the Lord for our family, but everywhere we went when my kids were growing up, I mean, that's all we got was praise. All we got was like, how do you get your kids to sit still, and how do you get your kids? Like, because we teach them at home. We practice this stuff at home. And it's crazy though.
How did you, before you get into that, tell me how did you do that for a 3-year-old? Because that's where we at, bro. Like my 3-year-old, when we go out to eat, like she don't care that we out to eat. You know what I'm saying? She gonna talk. She gonna play with whatever, and I'm talking to her, and I'm like, I don't want to discipline her with a pop or anything like that, and I'm just saying, like, and I'm talking to her, and I'm like, I just want you to stop doing what you're doing. That's all I want you to do, so I can, and that you can eat, and we can just be in peace. So how would you coach somebody like me on something like that?
Well, I would say first, I mean, you got to be on one accord with your spouse when how you're going to discipline your children, because if there's a disconnect there, then it's going to create discord in the leadership, and they're going to see it, and then they're going to play against it. This is why where you'll get one kid going to mom about something, and then when she say no, she run to dad about it, trying to get her way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so we were both on one accord where how we're going to discipline our kids, and we wanted to make sure that if one kid ran to the other parent, that we would check, hey, did you tell them so-and-so? So that way they can't manipulate between us, And then the other thing was we just really, I don't think people realize how smart kids are. I mean, we talk to them like almost like adults. Like,
you're supposed to.
We did a lot of talking. It was a lot of interacting. And I also think part of it is your kids take after you, your sinful nature. I really do. Whether it's me or your wife, the kids take after our sinful nature. So,
dude, we just met, Jerome. Like, you just gonna hit me with conviction? Like, okay.
No, I'm serious. Because
that's why I'm convicting.
Yeah, well, because I just believe this, because when I was growing up, I didn't, even though I had issues with my mom at a certain age, I always wanted to make sure I didn't respect her, because in my mind, I felt like, man, when I have kids, I don't want them doing, disrespect. I'm sorry. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I didn't disrespect her. Yeah, thank you. Because in my mind, I wanted to make sure, because I felt like I was going to reap it back if I did when I started having kids. So that was kind of my mentality. But by nature, I'm very low key by nature. Like, I'm not I can be energetic at times, but overall, I'm just a real low key, smooth kind of guy. Yeah. And my wife's very charismatic, but she's, like I said, she's one of the sweetest people you'll meet. She ain't perfect, but I'm just saying, like, her nature, she's not
that's my wife too. Like,
she's not abrasive.
Like from the same cloth.
Yeah. She's not abrasive. And so I think I just believe our kids took after that nature. And so it was kind of easy to discipline them, because I remember there was only one friend that I've had that I ever trusted with my kids. And I remember I left my oldest two with him one time. And when we picked them up, because me and my wife wanted to go out on a date, and they were like, I say maybe 3 and 4 or 4 and 2 or something like that.
Wow.
And he was like, man, I will watch your kids anytime. He said, man, I've never met no kids. He said, man, they did not move. They sat there. We told them what they wanted or what they're going to do. And they're like, okay, all right. And I was like, really? He's like, dude, what are y'all doing over there to these kids? I said, nothing. They're normal. They play. And that's the other thing I want to say. we also allowed them to be kids too. And I think sometimes as parents, because we don't want to be bothered or we trying to do what we trying to do, we yell at the kids because, you know, we frustrated or kids that do stuff where they'll mess stuff up. We didn't like, we got, you know, if you sat on the nice couch, you got yelled at, right? See, we didn't do that with our kids. We just said, okay, let's not buy a couch that's white and wait till they get older to buy something like that. So when they go jump on the couch, we ain't fussing at them. So we did stuff like that, you know, just so it didn't frustrate us.
The end in mind. You had a plan. Y'all had a plan. Y'all thought it out in so that you could avoid certain issues that may come up.
Absolutely. I wouldn't say everything though. I wouldn't say everything. Just as things arise, we say, hey, okay, let's make this adjustment. Because it wasn't like we sat there and planned every single thing out. But we just didn't want to give our kids the same complexes that our parents gave us in certain areas. Doesn't mean we backed off the disciplines and different things, but the complexes that, you know, because, you know, when you're being yelled at by your parent and they're not explaining why, it can give you a complex. You know,
oh man, because you don't know like, that's in anything though, bro. Like if you like as a teacher, you know what I'm saying? I'm a retired teacher. Like I didn't learn unless I understood the why. Like
I'm the same way.
So like when I was teaching myself math in college, I was just so confused. I was like, I don't understand why this is the answer. But they're telling me this is the answer. But then when I kept practicing it, then I said, oh, that's why. Then it's totally different. So my kids that's what I do with my kids. I mean, I do discipline them, except my oldest. And we'll talk about ages in a minute. Mine are 11. Mine are 11, 9, 7, and almost 3. Okay. And the 11-year-old, the first 2 don't really have to get any more pops anymore. Unless it's something very egregious.
Right.
Okay? The 7-year-old, he has he's struggling with something right now. And it seems that's the only thing that he will respond to change his behavior. Like we've tried talking, we've tried taking away stuff, we tried rewards, we've tried so many different things, right? And so forgot my point, but what we came to understand is that each one of them,
the end game,
so the end game is that everybody has a particular way of processing what it is that they're learning. And so if they understand the why, that's what it was. If they understand the why before they get their discipline, even though they may disagree that they're getting a discipline, it's very hard for them to argue why they're getting one. So so for example, there was one time our 11-year-old who's responsible, by the way, very responsible. But she had made a very, very bad decision in being on the internet when we told her not to. Okay, and mom found out, and typically we would reaction like, you already know this is not what you're supposed to do, and she was on punishment already. So this is what she did while she was on her punishment, right? And so we brought her in, and we just had a dialogue together with her about the responsibilities that we are expecting of her, and that her, you know, and she's the oldest, so they're looking at you know what I'm saying, to respond in a different way, right? So you have that particular pressure. Me and her mother are both older kids, so we get it, you know what I'm saying? And so when we explained it to her, she disagreed. I mean, not disagreed. It made her more aware of herself. Of like, man, I let my parents down, and I let myself down, and then I let God down as well.
Right.
You know, more than anything. And so explaining the why is so important when you rear your kids.
And you know what it does too? It also teaches them how to take responsibility in life when they do screw up. So, you know, I was thinking back when I got pulled over by a cop once, and, you know, especially with all the social injustice and all this stuff going on. This was back probably about 2006. And I had neglected to take care of a ticket. So I'm on a suspended license, and I had another ticket pending that I had totally forgot about, right? So I'm just being negligent, probably because I was mad about it. Probably this is back in California. And see, in California, it's different than Texas. You get a speeding ticket in Texas, it costs you a couple $100 or whatever, maybe 300 at the most. California, that's going to be, back then, that was about a $534 fine. Then you only had 30 days. In 3 months, that ticket be up to like $1,000. Another 3 months, it's up to $1,500. So if you don't take care of it, you're gonna get taxed. So I get pulled over, and I'm on a 3-day fast at this time. So I haven't eaten anything, drinking anything, because that's the way I would fast back then.
Yeah. And
so this cop pulls me over. I mean, man, he is going in on me. I mean, he's yelling, he's fussing, cussing. I mean, if it was on camera today, somebody would have recorded it and posted and said this cop was being abusive and racist, right? But I didn't take it that way. I took it as, though, okay, he could take a different approach, but the reality is I'm at his mercy because I got the ticket, I'm speeding, I don't have any insurance, and in California, you don't have no insurance, they could take your car. He could have towed my car right then and there, and we're 3 blocks from home, and so, I mean, he's in my face, his finger, he's just,
Why is he so?
Yeah, I don't know. This dude was just, he probably had a demon. I don't know. But my wife tries to interject and says something, and he's like, "I'm not talking to you." And at this point, I'm like, "Okay, you don't get to disrespect my wife." You know what I mean? And so everything I'm saying to this man is just like, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." I'm just so dead because I haven't eaten. I'm like on my 3rd day of a fast. I'm weak. You know what I mean? I'm just like, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." That's all I'm saying. And so, but here's the thing, though. I took responsibility for it, and the man let me go. Though I could have got my car towed, things would have been worse for me. He let me go. All because instead of me making an excuse and trying to argue at him fussing and yelling at me the wrong way, the reality is, yeah, he's wrong for his approach, but I'm at his mercy because he could take my car. He can make things worse. He could add to he can give me another ticket. He can do all kinds of things. So I'm just using wisdom. I'm just like, yeah, I could be mad about this, but the reality is I was being negligent about my ticket and me speeding. You see what I'm saying? And so I just said all that to say that, when we teach the why, it does teach our kids how to take responsibility for their actions and not to overreact over emotionally, even when sometimes the approach might not be the right way, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. It makes great sense.
Yeah.
So I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. For me, when I hear your story, I'm thinking, like, I don't understand why I would, even in that position, yell at him if I know I'm wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I mean, he's yelling at me. I see it as my, I know he's not my coach, but I'm likening it to how my coaches were. Like, I played basketball,
right?
And my coaches would yell at me, like I was trying to mess up. You know what I'm saying?
Right. But it's funny because I made a video about this. I never put it on YouTube, but I made a video about that story. But I remember, though, the way I processed it, it was almost like he was yelling at me like he wanted the best for me, but it was almost like a father. It was almost like that's how I took it. Really. And this is a white dude. He was
disappointed in you.
Yeah, he just, because I had 3 kids in the back. My wife's on the right side of me. I mean, we're in back then it was a pretty nice car we had at that time. And he just like, bro, I mean, I took it almost like after the fact, like it was like, you're blowing it, like get your stuff together. Okay. But if you're emotional, you won't take the responsibility, and then you'll get offended by him coming at you like this, and then you'll respond the wrong way. And then my car would have been impounded with 3 or 4 kids on the curb with my wife. Now we got to walk 3 blocks at 10 o'clock at night with dogs, and you know what I mean? And so I just and then on top of it, you got another ticket, then you got to pay for the insurance, and then you got to pay to get your car out the impound. I mean, it just could have compiled and made it worse. So I just said it to say, though, again, when you teach your kids those things early and set that foundation, they know how to handle themselves, even with everything that's going on today, and my kids, I trust wholeheartedly when they're out there. I don't have to worry about them acting irate or irresponsibly with authority, because they're learning it from the authority in their own home. You know what I mean? And I'm fair. I'm stern. My reputation is I'm stern, but I'm fair.
Hey, that's what's up. I got that all through. That's what they say in my house too. That I'm strict. They say I'm strict. but they definitely say they're unfair. I asked one of the questions that I asked my kids, because I asked them, and I've said this on podcasts before. I asked them to grade me. You know what I mean? Because and it's not, and I used to do this when I was teaching, that I would ask my students like, how am I doing? What is it that I need to be working on? Because ultimately I'm here to help you, and I'm asking the question of somebody that's not my superior, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm asking the question from people that ordinarily would not going to tell you what you're doing wrong for you to know what to do right. And so I would ask them, recently I asked them to grade me on my communication skills. And so it just kind of tells you what type of open dialogue that we have. And they graded me. My oldest gave me a 6. My my oldest son gave me an 8, and he's nice though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't like nothing really things bother him, but he's just so cool and collected. You know what I'm saying? You have to kind of walk around. You have to work with him on that. And then my son Ethan, he's like it's a 6, you know. And so we begin to be able to talk about why it is a 6 and what could daddy have done differently. Literally, like, what could I have done differently in the situation that you're referring to that would have made it an 8 or a 9? And so what they told me was, like, Gianna, she said she had an example on the spot, bro. And I said, so give me an example. And she was like, well, you know, when the other time you tell me to put something up, well, you wasn't really clear in why you wanted me, why again, why you wanted me to put something away over here as opposed to here. And I was like, and I went back, I was like, yes, I would have been confused too. Right. And so that made me from now on, make sure that I'm very thorough in explaining myself, not just with my kids, but with others as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we used to have a monthly meeting. We used to have minutes. We used to have the minutes and all that.
Man. Okay, let me go back before you get into that. Tell me the ages of your kids.
My youngest, she just turned 16 on the 30th of March, literally 5 days ago, whatever that is. Then there's Natalie, who's 17. She'll be 18 in August. I got Jariah, will be 22 this July. Okay. And Amari turned 20. My only son, he turned 20 in February.
Okay, got it.
So, and the way our ages work is kind of weird. We're always odd or even. So I'm 48. It'll be 48. My wife will be, she's 44. Then there's 16, 18, 20, then 22. The next year it'll all be odd. It's kind of weird, but yeah.
That's cool.
And we didn't plan that.
I know. When did you recognize that?
We recognized that early, probably. Well, I want to say early. I'd say probably after Jade's second birthday. This is my youngest. That's probably when we probably noticed it, after her second birthday.
That's what's up. Yeah. Something unique about us is that each person has another person has their letter in their name at the beginning.
Okay.
And so like you know, I'm Elijah. Then we have Ethan. My wife's name is Janir with a G, and we have Gianna, and then we have Joshua. And when we were having our last kid, Jordana, we didn't know what the name was going to be. And Gianna, at about, how old was she? She was like 8, I think 8 or something, 8 or 9 or something like that. I want to say about 8 or 9. And she was like, why don't we name her with a J, like have a J name? It's like, why? She said, so that everybody can have a letter buddy. It's like, what?
A letter buddy. That's right.
Yeah. So at 8, she had already processed that each person had a letter buddy. That's that's why it took us so long to come up with Jordana's name, because we only could look for J's.
Got you.
And so that's a cool little thing about us as a family. So I want to go back to this. I want to ask this question.
Okay.
I want to talk to us now. We you know, people understand that you're working in progress, and then you even have kids outside of the house now. But kind of take us back to like when most of them were in the house. What would you say the area of opportunity that if you went back was you would have done better?
Oh man, that's a good question. I wish you would have gave this to me soon. That's good. Um, I try not to be one that lives with too many regrets, because we're big on teaching grace and mercy in this house.
Okay.
Because sometimes you can have your expectations so high that when they're not attainable to a child, they'll feel like they can never live up to it, then they'll just give up.
Very good point.
And so I would say if there's anything,
Okay, well, teach
I'm,
it, or go back and like kind of teach it from, present it from the perspective of not necessarily regret, but what could somebody else do if they encountered this particular situation that hasn't arrived there yet?
okay, well, I can say, well, let me say this. I can say that the transition from certain ages is definitely different on how you approach things,
Oh man,
discipline. When they go from a certain
good
age
name.
to that teenage time, and then from the teenage time now, I have two young adults. They're still here. Everyone's still in the home.
Oh, okay.
Um, that's different. You always say that parenting don't come with a manual, and it don't.
Use the
Some things
Bible,
you learn
bro.
on the fly. But the one I would say this, that I don't have any regrets really, but I do tell them that, and this is one of the things me and my wife have always told them, like, just like you're growing as children, we're growing as parents because we haven't
Yeah,
done
yeah,
this before. You know what I
yeah. That's
mean?
crazy.
And
Yeah,
so just like, we want you guys to be understanding towards us. When we used to have the monthly meetings, that was one of the things we would do. We'd have a round table, we'll go around, we'll ask, what are any issues? Is there anything you may have misunderstood that mom and dad said? Something
that's
that you may have been holding on to, that, because we're kids,
yeah,
because you'll grab that and take it and make a principle from it and say, when I get older, this ain't gonna never happen. So
yeah,
we tried to address all that stuff. Like of course, they would all be pretty honest. I think we had one that wasn't as honest, but then later on, something happened to where she humbled herself, and now she's more transparent about, her struggles, or, her shortcomings or whatever. Even
yeah,
how we teach them how to express themselves. Like, I know the way we were raised, you just didn't talk back in the Black family. You don't get to say nothing. I teach my kids that they can't talk back, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So if you
yes,
don't understand something, I don't have a problem with you questioning something, but
yeah,
it's how you say it. You got to watch your tone, and you got to make sure you're trying to really understand what it is that you misunderstood. Because
yeah,
if you're getting smart, then that's going to be a different reaction.
yeah.
Just
That's a
expect it.
very
You know what I
good
mean?
point. Yeah,
So we do try to teach them, because we want them to learn how to express themselves. So when they are being mistreated, when they get older, they don't become victims, and they know how to say, okay, hold on now. I hear what you're saying. And you don't have to be all overly emotional and irrational
very
about
good,
it. So
very
that's one of
good.
the things we try to teach them. So I wouldn't say, maybe with my son, I wish I could have forced him to be a little bit more diligent on some things. I would say that's probably one that just came to me.
Okay.
Because now he's 20, and I don't know if it's just a normal thing when you're at that age. I mean, he's a pretty diligent guy, but you know how when you just have these expectations, you just want it
Yeah,
more. It's like,
yeah,
no, you're wasting time. But he's a good kid, and I know his intentions is in the right place, and he's going to get to where he's trying to go. And so I'm
that's
very
right.
patient. But for a dad, me looking, I'm just like, man, nah, he don't know, he don't understand. He needs to be doing this right now. He need to be
Yeah,
doing. But other than that, we don't really have any. Well,
yeah. I would. Yeah,
if we made
yeah. I would.
mistakes,
Yeah,
we
I
try
would
to
just
learn
say.
from them.
Yeah. Okay.
We learn from them. We were honest with them. Well, there's been a couple of times where we had to apologize to our kids.
There you
Just
go.
be very transparent. Just like, hey, because as Christians, one of the things I just don't want to do is give them a bad idea of what God is about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you got too much of that out here now. You
Right.
get on TED Talk TV, and they talking about growing up in cults and all this stuff. And
Mm,
I'm not slighting their experience, because I'm not saying they didn't have those experiences, but I just want to make sure my kids' experience with growing up with their Christian parents aren't something that they walk away from and then get out here and now God is so horrible because you misunderstood something that mom or dad may have said that you took the
yeah.
wrong way. You know what I mean? So
Very good
we
point.
always try to keep those lines of communication clear,
Yeah.
and be adamant about it. So
That's what's up. We do this, man. I'm telling you, it's like we've never. This is the first time meeting face to face, and it's crazy that we have so much similarities. Because I
Wow.
even go back to the point of like your mom was a cheerleader, so was mine. My mother
Wow.
was a cheerleader. My mother,
Wow.
my mother and her twin were cheerleaders at WT White, and they were the first
Mhm.
black to be
Wow.
on the drill team there. You know what I'm saying? So
Same with
I,
my mom.
and
Back in California. Yeah.
yeah, so it's
It's
crazy.
crazy.
Yeah, and so then you talk about how you're kind of you tutor your kids. I have two sons and two daughters, and
Mhm.
my mindset is typically looking like yours. Like, what does the end look like, and what do I need to be saying now
Mhm.
to help them, help me guide them to where God ultimately wants them to be.
Exactly.
Because I told them recently,
Mhm.
at the end, like when y'all turn 18, like there's not really much that I supposed to do as far as like tell you what to do. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Most of what I'm needing to do by then is to be what they call, I guess, an advisor or a counselor
Yeah.
type deal, right? And
Mhm.
so, and I told them the same thing you told your kids. Like, listen, there is literally no manual on how to raise you as an individual, and
Mhm.
all of you are different. So I said, if I do something wrong, I typically apologize. If I've
Right.
disciplined too harshly, even with my wife, if she'll even come to me and she's like, you think I was a little bit too harsh there? And I'll say yes or no. It
Mhm.
was a point in time where we would we still struggle with it every now and then. It's
Mhm.
talking about their discipline in front of them, but we kind of got away from that. Whoever disciplines first, we follow behind that individual. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? So whatever they say, then that is it. Unless they
That's
come
it.
back, then we can talk to them and say, what do you think about this?
So you
And
guys
so,
are one accord.
oh, 100, 100.
Gotta
I mean,
be. Gotta be.
yeah, 100. I mean,
I
even if we disagree, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
We will come to an understanding of how to get back on the same page to
Mhm.
help them ultimately.
Yeah, and I was gonna say this, that even as they get older, the transition in how you discipline them,
Help me with
um,
that. What you mean?
like as they become teenagers, 15, 16, 17, I mean you
Hmm.
just don't you don't you approach it differently,
Okay.
like I mean there's still disciplines, don't get me wrong.
Can you give me an
You know,
example?
you, um well for us, we went the toughest thing for us to deal with was devices. Once they hit that age, dealing with them not getting onto the wrong sites and
Okay.
trying to protect them from that. That was a
Okay.
challenge. There was a point in 20, I want to say 2017 or 2018 where I shut the internet off for a year. I just turned it off. Okay,
Okay.
you can't get responsible about. Okay, I'll just shut it off. Seeing people
Wow.
think that's hard, I'm like, look, we didn't
Wow.
have it growing up,
Wow.
and and so I shut it
That's
off.
impressive. That's impressive. Only
And I
because
told
you
them,
need it. You know, like for my
"Mm,
business, I need internet. So I'm saying like to cut it off, like you got to figure out other ways around that one.
well, we homeschool, so they need it too. We
You did
found other
too?
way.
Did I tell
Yeah.
you that you do too?
Oh, I know you did. You didn't have to tell me. I could tell.
What? How?
I,
How
I don't know. I could just tell. You didn't have to tell me. Maybe Antoine told me. I don't know, but I
okay,
could just tell you homeschool.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
but yeah,
another.
we homeschool, and
Okay.
my wife, like I said, outgoing person, so she just made the library very resourceful. They know her, you
That's
know,
what.
and
Yeah.
so that for that year, and then after about a year, she's like, "Okay, babe, it's getting a little tough. I'm gonna need the internet back." I was like, "All right." So we just had to put
Mm.
all these safeguards in place. Had to explain to them over and over. Curfew, cut it off at this time. 10 o'clock, it goes off. The internet, whatever. And that was a fight. That was probably our biggest fight dealing with that. Just
Okay.
because you get
Okay.
up and one of them was on it, sneak in, and and it's like,
That's it.
look, we're trying to protect you. And then we would go on YouTube and show them certain things of disastrous situations where kids were on the internet, where maybe somebody they were talking to came to their door, or we're very transparent with our kids.
That's
We
it.
went through the whole sex ed stuff, all that stuff. You know what I mean?
What age
So
did you do that?
uh, I couldn't tell you, but I
Okay.
believe for the girls, once they passed the age of their flower, as the word puts it.
Okay.
Once they got a cycle, it was like, okay, the
Okay.
hormones is about to kick in. So
Okay.
it's time to have that talk and what that's about, And of course, my wife did a lot of that for the girls, because, for a man, it's kind of, uncomfortable,
Yeah.
just being honest. But,
Yeah.
but my perspective still came into play, and it was very effective. And so
This
they're
is
all
dope.
still virgins,
That's dope.
and we're trying to, hopefully, if it's the Lord's will for them to be married, we're trying to put them in position, teaching my son things so he can know how to take care of a family, by example,
Mhm.
more so than just what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so the sacrifices that come with it, even when you're wanting to give up or when it gets tough, because, sometimes it gets tough. I believe God give us these shoulders for a reason because we can carry it. But there's times even Jesus had a hard time carrying that cross at a certain point. There are
Every time
times
on
where,
Simeon, huh?
yeah, you trying to carry the load and it get a little tough sometimes, but you
Yeah.
can't give up, you can't quit, and that's why it's good to have some mentors sometimes, or some brothers in the faith that you can talk to, your leadership at the church, whatever it is, that you can throw some stuff at, because it do get heavy sometimes, but as a man, you got to keep pushing, you got to, keep your chin up, try to make sure you don't. So I didn't go through that phase of, when stuff went wrong, the whole house felt that, I thank God for that, man. I really do. Because again, I just didn't want that pressure, like the way my mom put it on me. And that's another thing. Let me say this. I just want to say this because
Go ahead, get on your soapbox.
I think even for single mothers, one of the mistakes they make, and I'm taking this from my experience, is that they put a lot of pressure on the boys to be the men of the house in place of the father that's not there. And I just think they should never do that, because then when he's trying to be that man that he's really not supposed to be, because he's supposed to be a kid, then when it's time to rise to the occasion of some pressure in that home, he can't rise to it because he's not built for it yet. That's supposed to be his father doing it, showing him how to do it. And so then in life, when pressure comes, this is why a lot of men give up. This is why a lot of men throw in a towel. This is why a lot of men don't want to commit to things, because mom put it on them early and they couldn't do it. So now they don't want nothing to do with it. And I'm saying that because that was one of the struggles I had when I took on a leadership role at work. I just didn't want to do it because it's like, who wants to do that? You know what I mean? But I had to do it because it took care of my family, especially without an education. I don't have an education. I have a GED.
Wow.
And I've been with this company almost 20 years, and I'm able to take care of my family.
That's dope.
You know what I mean? And then that's just by the grace of God. You know what I'm saying? So, I've never prided myself on education, though. We trying to push our kids to get some education.
You mean higher learning?
Or higher learning. There you go.
Because you always want to get educated.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, absolutely. But we try to do it in a way where we're not, because I just don't believe you have to go into debt to get educated or to get that higher learning. And I just think
I learned that late.
Yeah, you don't have to go spend $80,000 to get in. No, so we try to teach them another way. Like, you can get what you're looking for to get the skill set that you need without mom and dad having to put the house up for it, because I'm not putting my house up for you to go to school.
That's good. Hey, we told our kids, we told them that, speaking of schooling, we talked to, because I'm an educator. I also taught at the college,
right?
And I was and I would tell my own kids, listen, college is not. I would tell this to my students. Matter of fact, for 6 years, I think, in a row, I would talk to them about, listen, do not go to college. That's how that's how I started. And, it's been programmed in them to do so. And they was like, Mr. Glenn, what? I said, nah, don't go. And they was like, but that's what they told us. I said, that's what they told you. But, what they haven't told you is that you only need to go for certain reasons. Like there are certain professions that need to go, but not every profession needs to go. And so we talked to our kids about it, specifically Gianna, since she's old enough, she's 11, and she's already thinking in that way. And we talked to her about, listen, we're not putting up any money for you to go to college. You know what I'm saying? You're going to have to, you're going to have, because we prefer you not to go, unless you have it paid for.
Right
now, if you can get some scholarships, is what we're going to, help you with that. Go to a junior college, we're going to help you with that.
Right.
But to just go to a school just because you want to go, that's not okay.
Right.
And so she began to kind of look at what it was that she wanted to do to see if she even wanted to go. right?
Wow.
She needed to go.
Right.
And so what happened was she wants to be a zoologist. Joshua, who's 9, wants to be a missionary. So we talk about these things and seeing if what you need schooling, right? I mean, what you need higher learning, if you will.
Right.
And so now she's trying to get a scholarship through softball. You know? So now and she's a homeschooler, but she can play all of these other
I get it.
Yeah, you know what it is. I just said for people that don't know. That so I'm with you. It's like you can always be educated. Higher learning is not always the means to get that.
Right.
You know? The majority of the rich people don't even have college degrees. No, most of the wealthy do not have college degrees.
Right. So, I mean, I did 2 years. You know, I did 2 years, and when the kids start coming, you know, I couldn't. It was hard. It already doesn't keep my attention. You know, I got a short attention span with certain things. And I'm being honest, you know, I'm a visual learner. So if it ain't graphics and, you know, animation, it's just not interesting to see letters on the page and read it unless it's something that really has my attention, like the Word. You know, I
knew you was going to say that.
Yeah, I can get in that all day. You know what I mean? But, you know, but my wife's not like that. My wife's she's a big reader, and she's big. That's one of the biggest things. She's big on reading here. Their comprehension skill was far more advanced than mine was, because, you know, I couldn't read and comprehend at the same time, because I had such a complex. I was an introvert when I was younger. And so I'm worried about how I'm looking and I'm sweating. And so you had to get in front of the classroom and read, you know, I can't comprehend because I'm worried about how I look, you know. My comprehension was horrible.
That was me
different
too.
now, but still, it's just like back then, though. I was so sweaty and palms sweating, and it's like, but, you know, but she's big on that. I mean, the reading comprehension is great. Like one of my 17-year-old, she had a problem in school where the teachers were trying to put her in special ed. And all it was, it's funny because they want to put your kids in special ed for any little thing, you know. Mari, my son was an honor roll student when he was in public school. Actually, I had my oldest daughter and my son. And he would stand up while he was doing his work because, again, he's antsy. He's a kid, you know.
Most boys are.
And exactly. And so the teacher called my wife down there once, and about him, she's like, "Is he okay?" She goes, "Yeah, he's my best student, but I'm trying to understand why he don't want to sit down and do his work." She goes, "Oh, he gets that from his dad. His dad is the same way." It's like, you know, I'll stand up doing stuff because it's hard to just sit there, you know, unless we're doing this or something like that.
Yeah. I would let my students do that if they needed to stand. Like, I had several boys that, like I said, listen, you need to pace the room. As long as you're not bothering people, man.
Right. Yeah, and that's what she did. She let him pace. She let him do it the way he did it because he was still a straight A student. But my daughter, she was quiet, and she's the kind of kid, like, she's like, you know how, like, when a child when a child is being weaned, like, they learn how to wait on mom and dad to give them food without crying and all that. That's how she is. She was like that very young. So she's a very patient kid. And so when she would raise her hand, the teacher would be like, "Okay, you know, Natalie has a problem, whatever, we'll address you." And then she'll forget about her, and Natalie would just sit there waiting. But in the process, she was starting to fail some things. But it wasn't because she couldn't comprehend or didn't have the ability to or had a handicap. It was just because the teacher was forgetting about her, because my daughter is just sitting there waiting patiently, because when her mom and dad says, "Oh, well, Natalie, I have your food here in 5 minutes," it happens. So she's expecting that to happen in the public school. So they're trying to put her in public school over there. We're like, no, there's nothing wrong with my child. And when we put her in homeschool, she excelled. I think out of all my kids, except for the oldest one, she was probably the best student. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And I don't put them against each other, but I just mean as far as her disciplines and
listen, they know.
Yeah, they know. Yeah. And they're all smart, but, you know, like my son, he was still the same way, even at homeschool. My wife was like, he want to crack jokes. He don't want to sit still. He disrupts the class and all that. So I had to play principal and come put the smack down.
Me too. That's what it is. So I appreciate this. This has been good, man. Hey, listen, I'm gonna get to my question. I had some other questions, but time is
I know.
You know, it's been good. I wanted to. So I'm gonna get to my 3 questions that I always ask.
Okay.
These are my fun questions, if you will. And you're gonna have to give me a number between 1 and 45. I'm gonna read the question and then you answer to the best of your knowledge.
Okay.
Okay. So give me a number between 1 and 45.
33.
Okay. What was your favorite thing about your mother?
Her outgoing personality, very outgoing.
Okay.
Probably
And
crazy, but
it drew you. Why did it drive you crazy?
no, so it was probably crazy, but yeah,
Oh,
you know, her being a cheerleader and she was just very outgoing. I can
she's
say that's
ready.
yeah, absolutely.
That's what's up. Okay. Give me another number.
7.
Which is the very best Christmas present you have ever received or given to someone?
Oh, well, the gift of salvation, most definitely, but
But you can't give that.
yeah, okay. Well, I received it.
That's a good point.
But outside of that, I would say there was one Christmas, 8th grade, I think it was. No.
Your memory is crazy.
6th grade. This is my mom was married the second time she was married, and we got these. Remember those tabletop video games back then? You had like Frogger and Donkey Kong and all that. Yeah. The tabletop little arcade games. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say that was probably the best one I got. Best.
That's what's up.
I mean, you had everything that year.
You did what?
I said we had everything that Chris. I mean, we was sneaking, opening up the gifts and running back, hiding and stuff, trying to put the tape back. But we I mean, we had so many gifts that Christmas. That was the best Christmas. It was like 6th grade. That was definitely the best Christmas.
That's what's up. You those video. Have you been to the video museum? I think it's in Frisco.
Now, I'm out there almost every weekend, but no, I haven't. Yeah,
there's a video museum. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like retro. It kind of takes you through the history of video games. It's about $10 to get in. We've been twice, and then they have like a little arcade room, kind of built like it was a little bit back in the day. Probably like 20 games in there or something like that that you could play. Then they have some games that you could play for free. Wow. That was pretty cool. To take you from like the computer where they had the games on the PC, and then take you through the Sega Genesis, the Ataris,
2600,
the
5200, ColecoVision. You know, it's crazy. I don't play any of that now, but I remember all that stuff, man. ColecoVision, I had the 5200, 2600, Sega Genesis, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, had all that stuff, man.
Yeah, that's what's up. So yeah, so they have that out there if you ever want to check that out. All right, give me a last number.
45.
What's the funniest thing? What's the funniest thing you did but blamed someone else for?
Wow, funniest thing I did but blame somebody else for. I don't even know if I have the capability of doing that.
Okay.
I'm serious. Oh man. I don't know if I want to say this one.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna say it. I haven't got to it yet. But my brother used to pee the bed. You grow up watching them horror films, and you watching Poltergeist and all this stuff that's scaring you out to death.
It's crazy that we watched that.
Crazy. We watched some crazy stuff, man.
Me and my wife just talked about that. Go ahead. Sorry.
And so, it's like 3 a.m, and I'm scared to go to the restroom. My poor brother. I'm sorry if he ever see this. I think I've already apologized to him. So yeah, I went ahead and wet him up. Yeah, that's.
What did he say? What did he say?
I mean.
What did you say?
I think he even got a whooping for that one.
That's not funny, but that's
it's not. It is now, but it wasn't then. And I made it right though. I fessed up and told that he didn't use the bathroom with me because he would pee to bed almost every night at a certain point. So,
oh man,
but yeah, that would probably be it. I don't know where
Man,
that came from because I haven't discussed that in like 2 decades.
maybe it
So
needed to be said. You said 45. I just read the question.
yeah, that's funny, man. Wow.
All right. So, all right. We're going to finish up with our last two questions. Uh,
Okay.
all right. So, next to last question is what TV dad would you say you resemble characteristic wise or mannerism the most?
You know, it's funny. Only two people that come to mind, and I want to be careful with this because I watched Bill Cosby
Okay.
and I watched, James from Good Times. I
Okay.
thought James was too hard, and I thought Bill Cosby was too soft at
Ah,
times.
okay.
But I loved Bill Cosby's approach with talking to the kids. But I liked how James was disciplined. So I think I took the best of both of those worlds and tried to add it to my approach. You know what I mean? Just because
Yeah.
you didn't see an example or a model, but I would say those are the two dads, Bill Cosby and James. Not one or the other, but I think I took
Yeah.
parts of their approach that I like to see because I would think Bill Cosby was, in the way they portrayed him, it made it look like Claire was the one in charge all the time. And I hated that. You know what I mean? But then with James, I just thought, they made him look like the angry, crazy dad. And I'm like, no, he's just struggling. He loves his family. And he's just trying to make it. But so I
Yeah.
always try to take the best of both worlds and just collide them into one. You know what I mean? So I would be
That works.
stern, but I'm fair.
Yeah, that's what's up. I like that. That's a
Yeah.
good answer. Okay, and last question is what would you like your kids to say about you? How would you want them to remember you?
Um, wow. Wow. I've never thought about this question. How would I want my kids? Integral, honest, sincere, brutally sincere. No, just kidding. Loving, sharing, great communicator, and someone who just wanted to live to please the Lord,
Mm,
ultimately.
that's
Yeah.
what's up.
Someone
Well,
that loved their mother, you know what I
okay.
mean? That's important to me. Yes, that's pretty much it, I think. Yeah.
That's what's up. Well, I appreciate the time, Mr. Jerome.
Mhm.
And all those that watch, make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. This has been dope, man. The last part of you have the last words to say whatever it is that you would like to say. I'm gonna remove myself and then I'm gonna come back, but the floor is yours.
All right. I would just say this. I know we kind of talked about my experience, growing up with my father and a lot of the hate. But what I didn't get to conclude was in 1994, I got to see my dad a week before he died. And I remember standing there with my grandmother talking to her at a family reunion on the 4th of July. And I'm looking from afar and I see this guy. And I'm like, who was that over there? I'm talking to my grandmother. And she said, that's your father. By this time, I hadn't seen my father in probably 10 years. And so I had heard he was dying of AIDS, but hadn't seen him. And because the family wanted to hide it to protect us. So he comes over to me and he sees me and he asks his mother, my grandmother, who is that? And she was like, that's Jerome. And he was like, and he just started breaking out in tears. And so he was like, that's my firstborn son. He kept saying, that's my firstborn son. He said it probably 5 or 6 times. That's my firstborn son. And so here it was. I'm carrying all this bitterness at 21 and I'm still angry um, towards my father. That in that moment, I realized I had to let go of the grudge I had towards him. And so as he's saying these things, all I could hear was, ultimately, I'm sorry. I failed you. I should have been a better father to you. And can you forgive me? I did not know this until after the funeral. They had said he had dedicated his life to the Lord, and I believe it was probably his last prayer to believe that he can bring closure to a situation with his firstborn son. And so we ended up hugging, and I forgave him. A week later, he went into remission. Me and my brother got to go talk to him and say some last words, and we told him how we forgave him. And then literally the next day, he died. And so if there's anything we can take away from this conversation, even though it started off kind of dramatic, I had to still deal with the effects of fatherlessness. But when Christ forgave me for all the wrong that I did, it really helped me to put that my father experience into perspective as to how we have to let go of a lot of grudges and forgive our parents sometimes, and even how to learn from those mistakes in order for us to be better parents. And so I just want to leave you guys with that.
That's what's up, man. That was phenomenal. I really appreciate the time. It's been dope, man. Thanks for another edition of Humble Dad. We out of here.
All right.